So anti-Israel protesters, that's a nice way of saying it, are causing chaos in Chicago and looking to disrupt the Democratic National Convention. Joining me now is Katie Pavlich, editor at townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. And look who's here, Clay Travis, founder and CEO of Outkick, also a Fox News contributor. What a great couple here. Ladies first, Katie, I just want to play a little sound of one of the protesters who was outside the convention hall today. Roll tape.
Genocide Joe Biden allows him to do it. Make no mistake, Joe Biden can turn off that tap of money and funding immediately. He could do it right now. He could have done it back in October. The fact that he didn't means he supports this genocide, that he's got the blood of 40,000 Palestinians on his hands.
Now, that guy's name is Hatem, I'm going to try to pronounce his last name, Abudaya. And a few years back, he said the following. I'm going to put that up on the screen. The U.S. and Israel will continue to describe Hamas, Hezbollah, and the other Palestinian Lebanese resistance organizations as terrorists, but the real terrorists are the government and military forces of the United States and Israel. Will Kamala Harris defer to these kind of people as opposed to our Israeli allies if she becomes president?
Well, these are not just anti-Israel protests. No. I ventured over yesterday to see them for myself. I've seen a number of them in Washington, D.C. as well, especially the one outside Union Station where they defaced the Freedom Bell and wrote Hamas is coming all over the monuments there. So they're anti-American, they're anti-Western. They openly call for murder and violence, globalize the Intifada, for example. They don't believe that these Islamic terrorist organizations who have murdered countless Americans, and including Hezbollah, who, by the way, were responsible for more American murders of any terrorist organization before 9/11, and they are now, of course, very actively attacking Israel and have plans to, through their Iranian overlords, to assassinate Americans and American officials right here in the United States. So this is a bigger problem. And to your question about whether Kamala Harris is going to placate or cater to these people, they already have. The DNC is holding a panels discussion featuring a number of people from the, quote, uncommitted vote, who are people who go to these rallies and organize them. Right. These are the 100,000 voters in Michigan, many of them in Minnesota, that Kamala Harris needs to beat Donald Trump. And so she is listening to them. Yeah. And it's not just a matter of, going against our ally Israel. It's about going against American values and placating to organizations full of people who believe in terrorism as an ends to political means.
Exactly. And we can dig up these guys' statement, but Clay, the American people have seen these people on the streets. There's almost no city in America that has avoided some kind of demonstration from these people over the past year or so, at least since October 7th, which they actually applaud some of these people, that murder of the innocents that they are saying was a good thing. They support Hamas for doing that. I mean, don't American voters know what's true and what's not in this situation?
I think it depends on the age, unfortunately. I think if you're over the age of 40, you still can understand good versus evil. I think if you're younger, you saw with the communications director from John Fetterman come out and say, oh, Fetterman's too old to understand that this is a complicated, nuanced issue. And I think that's what this reflects. And ultimately, I think there are a couple of big takeaways here. One is, if you are Jewish in America today, there is a profoundly anti-Semitic, anti-Israel component of the left wing of the Democrat Party that is incredibly ascendant. Second part of that is, if that group was not ascendant, Josh Shapiro, the governor of the most important toss-up state in America right now, Pennsylvania, would be the vice presidential nominee.
Absolutely.
So it's not only a toxic element of this, it's that it's having direct impact. And let me just add this final little thought. Joseph Lieberman was the nominee as a Jewish man for the Democrat Party in 2000 for Al Gore as the VP. I don't remember anybody lining up in the Democrat Party and saying this is unacceptable to have a Jewish guy on the ticket. 24 years later, the left in this country has become so profoundly anti-Semitic that we get an imbecile like Tim Walz instead of a highly popular governor of the biggest battleground state in America, Josh.
God rest the soul of Joe Lieberman. He was a great man. Katie, I want to show you what the New York Post devoted a full page to today, and that is what's happening in Chicago. Chicago's kind of puts Democrat policies on display in a whole range of issues. Crime, the most murders of any U.S. city for 12 years in a row. Education, 25% of school kids are reading at grade level. That means 75% are not. Only 18% of Chicago students are working at grade level for math. 18%, and yet they're spending $29,000 per student. You can go on and on with these things. The budget of the city is $16.6 billion, but they owe all the pension funds $37 billion. They cost $361 million to spend on migrants, and they're losing population by the droves. I mean, this is Democratic policies on display. Shouldn't you be ashamed of those figures rather than be supporting the wonders of Chicago?
You would think so. First, I just want to add that Hamas is still holding 5 American hostages to the previous discussion. But back to the issues in Chicago. I was talking to a woman yesterday who moved here from Eastern Europe 33 years ago. She's had a wonderful life here, but she's retiring early because she says she's worried about her safety in the city of Chicago. She was going back to Eastern Europe. I mean, everything about Chicago that is failing is a result of the far left progressive policies that Kamala Harris is trying to champion
and I gotta
on the
cut you
campaign
off.
trail for the rest of the country.
I got to cut you off because I want to give Clay a final note on this one. The amount of money they're spending on migrants there, diverting money that should be spent on citizens, particularly poor citizens, by the way, in Chicago, is really ticking off a lot of people in areas that used to be devoted to Democrats. Don't you think that will still? I know Kamala, the DEI candidate, that she's supposed to appeal to those groups, but they are seeing their own tax dollars being spent on illegals, hundreds of millions of dollars worth.
Yeah, I think it connects the 3 reasons that Donald Trump's going to be reelected in 2024. That's, and I keep hammering it, economy, border, crime.
Yeah.
You've got the failures of our modern economy and where those assets are going, the border that is wide open, and the crime that illegal immigrants bring to bear as well. All 3 of those things, whether you're white, black, Asian, or Hispanic, if you're United States citizens, unacceptable. Resources are being spent on non-citizens when citizens themselves don't have great lives right now.